So I think recording has started.
Okay.
We should start the event.
Okay.
Let me introduce the speaker. I think there is no need to introduce the speaker today. He has already given a talk on neoliberalism, John Rawls, Robert Nozick, on 26th December 2021. It was really a good talk, and it is because of that talk one of my MPhil students asked me to organize another talk by the same speaker, and this shows the attitude, the academic attitude of the speaker, that he has some potential and he can attract audience. I mean, they are not normal audience those who are having some knowledge. So in the earlier talk, I was addressing the speaker as Dr. Dhal. And this time when I asked him to send his CV for introducing the speaker better, he sent me something what made me more respectful to the speaker. What he sent me, that he has done MA and MPhil from JNU, and right now he is pursuing the PhD, and he is having 10 years of teaching experience. He has no book in his credit, only one article there in his credit. Then he sent me his only article to me, and I will not disclose the title of that article due to various reasons. But what I learned from him, and what I always emphasize, is that nothing past, nothing to hide your real identity. If you are a true academician, or if you want to be a true academician, then you should always speak truth. There is nothing to hide what you are and what you are not. That's the first condition. And second, the person is more important than his work. Generally, we value work than the person. And I used to say that who will get the job? If you are representing more than your certificate, then the job is yours. So if your certificates will represent more than what you are, then you may not get the job. Always individuals is important or superior to his or her work. And the common understanding is that if the speaker doesn't have much substantive work, he should not be called as a resource person. It's a general understanding. Yet, let me use Dr. Dhal. I mean, he will get the doctorate degree, I'm damn sure. So yet, Dr. Dhal has been a resource person in a HRDC program of Fakirmon University. And here on this platform, it is his second talk. And this means even if someone has not published anything, yet he can be a better speaker because of his reading, because of his understanding, and because of his art of delivery. I have also seen persons with strong publication, but they are not good speaker. Hence, we need to build up an atmosphere where the substance of the talk must matter than the position or publication of the speaker. Now, I welcome to one of my students who actually requested me to organize this talk. He is the MPhil student of our department, Tapan Kumar Sahu, to introduce the theme of today's talk. So Tapan, please continue.
Yes, sir. Sir, am I audible, sir?
You have to speak. Okay, you are audible.
Okay, sir. So thanks a lot, sir. And I am honored and privileged to have this great opportunity to introduce the concept or the theme of this webinar. So at the beginning, I would like to tell one thing, the reason behind the selecting this topic. That in the month of December, we had a very omnibus discussion on neoliberalism, and we got to know about the idea of John Rawls and Robert Nozick. But we were oblivious about the ideas of Eza Berlin and Amartya Sen. So I decided to have a common understanding about the concept of Eza Berlin and Amartya Sen. And I requested Himanshu sir to have a discussion on this topic, and finally we got the title that negative liberty versus positive liberty, reading Eza Berlin and Amartya Sen. So now I would like to tell what is the relevance of this topic in our present day. And through the negative liberty and positive liberty, we shall try to know how government function according to it. And negative liberty as a concept, it is given by Isaiah Berlin in his two concepts of liberty, which was published in the year 1958. And he said two things. One is negative liberty and second is the positive liberty. And negative liberty, it revolves around, it provides a private sphere in which man is completely free to do whatever he wants. And we can say he is free from any other external interference. But on the positive liberty, it talks about control from oneself. And he criticized the positive liberty because often it is seen that positive liberty is misutilized or abused by the authoritarian ruler, and they have tried to justify the interference, and because of that he criticized the positive liberty. On the other hand, Amartya Sen, in his book What is Justice for What, he talked about the positive liberty, and he got this idea from the Bengal famine, which happened before the independence, because thousands of people were dead at the time, and he said that negative liberty concept was there, but it could not work that time, and he supported the positive liberty concept, and he said that if state had been there, it could have saved the thousands of lives. And yes, he associated the positive liberty concept with the concept of capabilities. And finally, he supported the positive liberty concept. So it is in this context, we shall try to understand this in more detail from the Smruti Ranjan sir. And now I request Smruti Ranjan sir to begin his talk so that our learning. So thank you, sir, and please welcome, sir.
So thank you, Tapan, for the introduction to this theme. I think again we are back to the same debate. Before it was the debate between the John Rawls and Robert Nozick, and today another, Robert Nozick, and he is called Eza Berlin, and then there is Amartya Sen. So today's talk will be what is the debate between the Berlin and our Amartya Sen. What is the debate between this? What is important? Positive liberty is important or negative liberty is important? And today also it has a great impact over the life of individual, life of society, and life of state. And in social science, mostly we deal with these three entities and the interrelationship between them. So now I welcome Dr. Dhal to speak on this topic. So please, Smruti bhai, please, you may continue.
Thank you so much, Himanshu and Tapan. Thank you, Himanshu, for the kind words that you said in the beginning. So I'm touched by that, and I also want to thank Tapan for giving the idea of this talk. So we are teachers and we love to talk. So that way, I am really happy to talk to you for the second time in a gap of 3 months. So yeah, so thank you. Now the topic. um, negative liberty, positive liberty, and we are taking Isaiah Berlin and Amartya Sen. So at the outset, I want to make it very clear that in the next 1 hour in my talk, I will use the two words freedom and liberty synonymously or interchangeably. I am aware that there are thinkers or scholars like Hannah Pitkin, Bernard Williams, also Ronald Dworkin, who have actually made a distinction between the two terms, that is freedom and liberty. But I will not get into that distinction. For today's talk, I will restrict myself to the distinction between negative liberty and positive liberty. However, as I said, I will definitely use the two terms interchangeably, knowing it fully well that there are scholars like Pitkin, Williams, and Dworkin and others who have, who have made a distinction between the two terms, liberty and freedom. But I am not taking that distinction today. Mainly because if you read Amartya Sen, he is using the word freedom rather than liberty. And there are many, advocates of the positive liberty who also use the word freedom, not liberty. Not because these two words are different from each other, but because freedom is a word which which is more popular or more common rather than liberty, which is maybe a little sophisticated. This is not the real distinction, but we'll not get into that debate. Secondly, if you look at the European languages, other European languages like maybe the Latin, you will find that there are no two words like liberty and freedom. The only word use a single word. So this is in English that you find freedom and liberty, and in other European languages they mostly stick to one word. That is why in translations of English words into other European languages, you will find only one word and not the two words. So that is one of the reasons why I do not I will not get into the distinction. I will use the two words interchangeably. That is the first caution I thought I would um, at the outset at the outset I should make it clear, so that you should not be confused of why I'm using these two words interchangeably. The idea of making a distinction between positive liberty and negative liberty, it is not the credit doesn't entirely go to Berlin. Before Isaiah Berlin, actually Immanuel Kant did that, but he was not very systematic and organized the way Berlin made it. So that way Berlin is credited. But you should know that before Berlin, actually Kant tried to, although not this nomenclature, but he sort of gave that kind of a distinction. You also have somebody called Benjamin Constant, who lived between the late 18th century to the early 19th century, roughly 1767 to 1830 maybe. So And he gave this interesting distinction between liberty of the ancients and liberty of the moderns. So what is that distinction? Let me first explain that, then we will go to Berlin, because they are somewhat similar. I mean, not entirely identical, but there is some kind of overlap between the two distinctions. That one is made by um, Constant and the other one is by Berlin. So Constant says that the liberty of the ancients is the republican liberty, which you find in maybe ancient Greece, the in the thoughts of um, Aristotle maybe. And what is that? That you are free only when you participate in the public affairs, in the common affairs. So that kind of a freedom or liberty was possible when you practice direct democracy, like in the Greek city states. And also, you have to also take into account one more thing, that kind of liberty was also possible only when you have a class of slaves to support you, so that you will be doing the more meaningful work of participation in the public affairs, while the more mundane things, more menial jobs of your household will be taken care of by the slaves. So you are a full human being only when you participate in the public affairs. So this is the republican idea of liberty. You may also find that in the interpretation of Machiavelli by Quentin Skinner. That is the republican idea of liberty. In contrast, you find the idea of liberty of the moderns. What is the liberty of moderns? It is the liberty that we find in the modern times, in the liberal state, where liberty is not necessarily confined or restricted to participation in public affairs. For example, in a liberal state, you do not need to even cast your vote. Voting is not compulsory, unless and until it is a state like China, which is of course not democratic. Voting is not compulsory in the liberal states. So whether you participate in public affairs or not, whether you vote or not, it doesn't matter at all. To the liberal state, you do not need to you don't need to be political at all. So the liberal state does not need you to be political. I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying that the liberal state requires you to be apolitical. No, but the liberal state explicitly does not require you to be political. So there are two, these are two different statements. I'm saying the liberal state does not require you to be political. I'm not saying that the liberal state requires you to be apolitical. No, okay? So the modern idea of liberty resides in the fact that you can lead a meaningful life without being political. The state will not force you to be political. Krishna Chandra Maharana sir, please explain in Odia.
Please let me intervene. I mean, you just continue your talk, and I ask them not to disturb you. If they are writing anything, I will handle it. You just continue your flow.
Okay. I'm sorry, do not take me wrong, Krishna. I will do that, in maybe in the latter times, in 10-15 minutes, I may summarize it in Odia. Why I'm saying this, not because, see, language is not the parameter of knowledge, and certainly not the content, language, but we are trapped in a, in a colonial mentality, where our education system, everything is dominated by the English language. And it is because of also the global situation. So that is why we are so, I mean, it's a post-colonial condition, where we are so trapped in this. Everything is, from administration to education to many things. Even our social status is also determined by this language, which should not be. Ideally, this should not be the condition. But unfortunately, we are doing that. And we are, even, when I am told to speak in Odia also, I'll be able to do that, but I will feel, maybe handicapped somewhere, because I don't have the technical terms to use when it comes to Odia. But definitely, I'll try to um, summarize my talk in last 10 to 15 minutes in Odia. Okay, now getting back to what I was saying.
No,
The
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Actually, it's actually request. As the organizer, you please speak in English. I
Yeah,
think
I'll do that.
English.
I'll do that certainly.
I mean, speaking Odia, because these, this is recording actually. This
Okay,
is recorded, and non-Odias are also watching this.
okay,
So
okay.
I think learning a language is also part of the education. I think
Yeah,
if you are weak in English, then you are demanding Odia, then it has its own problem also. I mean, Odia language is a very difficult language. If you know the difficult language, then it's easy to learn English. So kindly don't ask our speaker to speak in Odia, because he himself is a Odia, and we are also not fluent in English, but still then we are trying for it. So when we are trying, so I think you as a Odia, you should also try, right? And it's very easy to understand our English, because we are not born in a English land, right? So you can understand, you just take an attempt, but don't ask us to speak in Odia, otherwise we never learn English. So please, Smruti bhai.
okay, okay. So getting back to the topic. So liberty of the moderns is is um, is a liberty where you are free. It's a sphere where you are free to do whatever you want to do. So it can correspond to the negative liberty. So the liberty of the moderns can correspond to, or may correspond to, the liberty of the um, or sorry, the negative liberty. I'm not you know um, I mean, the same may not apply to the other category. So liberty of the ancients may sometimes or may not coincide with liberty, with positive liberty. So now that we know what is liberty of the ancient and liberty of the moderns, the distinction given by the philosopher Benjamin Constant, who was a French Swiss philosopher. So we now move to today's topic, and that is the distinction between negative and positive liberty. Isaiah Berlin wrote an essay in 1958, and in that essay, he actually talked about these two concepts. But he wrote the essay, two essays on liberty, in 1969. So in most of the literature, you will find the reference of this 1969 text. But before that, 1958 also, Berlin started, talking about this distinction. So, what is this distinction? It's very easy. All of us, all of us who are into higher education in political science, we know the distinction. So what is it? Negative liberty is freedom from, and positive liberty is freedom to. I repeat, negative liberty is freedom from, and positive liberty is freedom to. So what is it? Negative liberty is the absence of some constraints, some interference into your freedom. So negative liberty is it's a condition where you are free from interference, or nobody is going to disturb you, nobody is going to stop you from doing what you want to do, what you want to pursue. But the story ends there. According to Berlin, the story ends there. That means with that freedom, what you are going to do is up to you. The society or the state will not bother that what kind of what is that enterprise that you are going to do with the freedom that you are given. So that is not the concern of the state or the society. You are free in a sphere, you are given personal freedom. So this is a freedom from interference. So what is the positive liberty or positive freedom? It is a freedom to do something. And here the idea is not to stop at providing you a free atmosphere, creating an atmosphere where you are absolutely free to do anything you want to do without disturbing others. Okay, so you don't stop at freedom from, but you are concerned with what you are going to do with that freedom. So it is freedom to. Now, people like John Stuart Mill. I talked about Benjamin Constant. Of course, Berlin. They can be put in the negative freedom, or in the negative liberty. So in that category, you may put all of them. However, in some literature, you may find that Mill can even be, John Stuart Mill can be read in the other tradition also, positive freedom. But in most of the interpretations, and also by Berlin also, Mill is located in the negative liberty tradition because of his advocacy, or his his advocacy of the freedom of speech, expression, and thought, or thought, speech, and expression. So so as I said, Benjamin Constant, John Stuart Mill, and many others, like the entire libertarian tradition. You take Nozick, you take Hayek, you take Friedman. All of them can be located in the negative liberty tradition, and the entire liberal state or the entire liberal tradition may be broadly put in the negative liberty tradition, as propounded by Berlin. It is not I am saying, or it is not other scholars are saying, but according to Berlin, the modern liberal idea is, it is the negative liberty. But do not take it, to the other thing. See, because you also have a distinction between classical liberalism and modern liberalism, where modern liberalism is more linked towards positive liberty. So I'm not getting into that debate now. I will do that, but for now, you can understand that, broadly the idea of the liberal state falls in the category of negative liberty. As I said, the liberal state or the modern liberal state does not require you to be political. So that way, you are given, or the citizens are given, the negative freedom to do whatever you want to do. Of course, there is a caveat, and what is that? That you cannot disturb others. You cannot get into the sphere of others. So if you have bought a sound system or a stereo, and in the middle of the night you can't just get up and you cannot play the stereo with full volume. That is not negative liberty. And definitely there is a distinction between negative liberty and license. So negative liberty and license are not same things. Okay. So negative liberty, it is external. It is the, it's a kind of external condition. However, positive liberty, on the other hand, is related to something internal, yourself. But there is also one element that you have to take into account, that when negative liberty is more individualistic in nature, positive liberty has the tendency, it has the inherent tendency to be tilted towards collective. I repeat, I said that negative liberty is related to the external sphere because it is the absence of on freedom. It is the absence of interference into your sphere, into your affairs. And positive liberty is more internal to the self. But at the same time, I am saying that whereas negative liberty is more individualistic in nature, positive liberty, on the other hand, may have the tendency to be tilted towards or to be biased in favor of the collective. And this tendency has been actually appropriated by many regimes, including the Soviet regime, or maybe the practicing communist states. So in the name of this freedom, they practice all kind of things which is not at all related to freedom, like they are authoritarian. So positive liberty has the inherent tendency to be appropriated by authoritarian regimes. This is not the case with negative liberty. So if negative liberty is so if it is so good that it doesn't run the risk of becoming authoritarian, then why we need positive liberty? See, we have to understand, because I gave examples of who are located in the negative liberty tradition. Let me tell you who are the people whom we can locate in the positive liberty tradition. People like T.H. Green, people like Rousseau when he talks about the general will, and of course Mahatma Gandhi. So you can, and yes, Karl Marx and the entire communist tradition you can put in the positive liberty tradition. However, I should also say this, that communists do not use. I mean, they will prefer the word freedom than the word liberty, because liberty is mostly used by the liberals, and freedom is a more general word which is used by even common people. So now, what are the problems with negative liberty and what are the problems with positive liberty? These problems will be more, um, um, it will be amplified when I talk about Amartya Sen's, idea of freedom. But I will point out here what are the problems within the term, or the concept of negative liberty. Sorry, positive liberty. In positive liberty, you have the risk of getting into the slippery slope argument. What is this slippery slope? It's like a slope, and um, you are given the task of getting to the top with a burden. It's like you are carrying a burden, and you are told to climb the slope. So you are at the bottom, you are told to get to the top. This is the slippery slope argument, in which is used in philosophy, and also in logic and other associated fields. So what is the relevance here for positive liberty? In positive liberty, the problem is that you are told that you have to be rational. You have to be rational. Whereas, so in the debate between negative liberty and positive liberty, you have a distinction between lower self and higher self. So your higher self is there when we talk about positive liberty, and you talk about the lower self when you have negative liberty in mind. So what is this higher self? The higher self is the rational self, and the lower self is the empirical self. Okay, so if you read philosophy, there is this distinction between rationalism and empiricism, and many other schools related to epistemology, or the um, branch of philosophy which deals with knowledge, as opposed to ontology, which deals with existence. Okay, now coming back to our concern. In positive liberty, you need to recognize your higher self or your rational self. Let us take an example, so that will be better for you to understand what is it. For example, I am, or you are a PhD student. You need to write your thesis. That is why you need a laptop or a computer, and you bought a computer or a laptop. Now you are free to do whatever you want to do with that laptop, of course, without breaking the law. So what you do is that after maybe 1 month, you need to submit a chapter to your supervisor. And because you bought the laptop recently and you are a movie lover, so what you do is that, you get the subscription of maybe Netflix or Amazon Prime, and you keep on watching movies one after another. And there your friend or your father or your mother or anybody, who is a well wisher of yours, comes into the picture and tells you, what are you doing? You bought the laptop for writing your thesis, not for watching movies, one after another. Like there is no ending. Whole night you are watching movies. So you can understand the distinction between negative freedom and positive freedom from this example. You are free. You are a free human being. The laptop belongs to you. You can do anything with that laptop without, of course, breaking any law. But your higher self may tell you, what am I doing? Or, maybe your well-wisher may tell you, what are you doing? You should write your chapters, because after 1 month, you need to submit your chapter. So here, negative liberty or negative freedom lies in using your computer for watching as many movies as you like. That is negative freedom. That means nobody will interfere in what you do with your recently bought laptop. That is negative liberty. What is positive liberty? You should have the ability to know what is better for you, what is beneficial for you in a meaningful sense. You should have that discerning power with you, that what to do with my computer, so that I do not become a slave of my computer. Computer is a slave of mine. I use it in a meaningful manner. I don't so I am not a slave to my computer. Rather, the computer is a device that I want to use. This is positive freedom, that it is not only important what are the doors which are open in front of you. So if there are 10 roads or 10 doors open open in front of you, that you can take any road, that is negative freedom, and nobody is going to stop. You may take any road. But what is positive freedom, positive liberty? You should have the capability to judge what is the best possible option for you. So it is not like, I am given the liberty so I can do anything I want. No, I should use this, I should use this freedom in a meaningful manner. So then what is the problem? I said there is a problem. What is the problem of slippery slope that I talked about? The problem begins now, that there is a distinction between your higher self and your lower self, your rational self and your empirical self. If it is restricted to the individual self, that is fine. There may be a higher self which tells me that do not watch movies continuously. It's okay if you have watched 1 or 2 movies, but now concentrate on your studies. This is higher self. What is the empirical self or lower self? Oh, this is my computer. I will do whatever I want to do. I will first watch some 10 to 20 movies, and there will be a saturation point. Then I will not feel like watching movies, and then I will definitely start reading. And maybe within 2-3 days my saturation point will be there. So after that, I will, even if I somebody tells me to watch movies, I will not watch movie, because this is a newly bought computer. So I have this interest in watching movies. This is a pretext. This is a justification that you want to give because you want to watch movies, not you don't want to study. If it is so simple that the higher self and the lower self is always in your self, then that is fine. It is not a problem. But and this is also called the divided self. You know that watching movies is not a very good option, because after 1 month you need to submit one chapter. You know that, but you are not able to control your passion. So when you do not control your passion, your desires, you do not have positive freedom. You have negative freedom. Oh, whatever I feel like doing, whatever I enjoy, I will do. That is lower self. That is your empirical self. But what is the real self or rational self? It is the self which tells you what is good for you in a meaningful manner, in a long-term manner. Okay? So as I said, it is fine when you when you restrict this distinction of higher self and lower self to you, that is fine, not a problem. The problem begins when you extend this distinction to a collective level, to others. Means when somebody claims that he or she knows better what is good for you because he is more rational as compared to you. He knows better what is good for you. Better than you, he knows what is good for you. This is the starting of the problem. Means you now make a distinction between higher self and lower self, not within oneself, but among different selves. This is the beginning of authoritarianism. Means the collective knows what is good for you. So that is why Rousseau said that one can be forced to be free. So what is this meaning, forced to be free? Means the state, the society, or the collective may tell you what to do or how to become free. You want to do something, but the state will not let you do that thing because the state knows that it is dangerous for you. It is not beneficial for you. The state will dictate what to do. That is authoritarianism. And the pretext or the logic or the justification is positive freedom. That you do not know what is better for you, what is good for you. I will tell you what is good for you. This is the starting of authoritarianism. And this is slippery slope. That that this distinction between higher self and lower self is good, and it should be sustained. But when you extend that to the collective beyond yourself, that is the problem. That is the slippery slope that you have to strike a balance between two. So now that I have explained what is positive liberty and what is negative liberty, and needless to say now that Berlin is a proponent of negative liberty, because he this is his argument that positive liberty has the tendency to become authoritarian. So in the name of ensuring positive liberty, governments or the states or the regimes have become authoritarian. So Berlin was a proponent of negative liberty and not positive liberty. Now I will spend 2-3 minutes to to give a critique of this distinction. of course, one critique is made by Amartya Sen, but before that there are also others. Like there is somebody called Felix Oppenheim. There is also somebody called um, um, I'm just forgetting the name. So he talks about a kind of different conception of freedom. And yes, the name is Gerald McCullum. So what Gerald McCullum says, he says that 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 the concept of freedom is based on three interrelated categories. What are the three interrelated categories? One is, of course, the agent. You know, the person regarding whom we are talking. The self, the agent. This is the first category. What is the second category, or the thing, or the second thing? It is the preventing conditions. That means interference. What is the third one? It is doing or becoming. I repeat, Gerald McCullum says that it is a triad. It is a triad, means a triangle. There are three things involved: the agent, the preventing conditions, and the doings or the becomings. That means it is meaningless, or it is very superficial to make a distinction between negative liberty and positive liberty, because it is not that either you have this or you have that. This distinction is untenable, and freedom comprises all three. What you want to do, whether you are free or not, and who is the person. That means the agent, the preventing conditions or the external conditions, and what you want to become, what you want to do with this freedom. All three are important. So it is really difficult to make a distinction between the two kinds of freedom. Freedom may take different shapes depending on the circumstances, and in most of the times it is a blend of the two, negative freedom and positive freedom. It is not that easy, as proposed by Isaiah Berlin. It is not easy. And to quote McCullum, he says, I quote, any statement about freedom or on freedom can be translated into a statement of the above form by specifying what is free or unfree from what it is free or unfree, and what it is free or unfree to do or become, unquote. So this is one critique of negative and positive liberty, or negative and positive freedom, or the distinction between the two. Now I move to Amartya Sen. I thought when I started the talk that I will end my talk in 1 hour, then we can devote the rest half an hour for discussion. But I'm sorry I could not, you know, restrict myself to the time limit. But let's have the discussion on Amartya Sen now. So many scholars argue that Amartya Sen can be located in the positive tradition. I think that is what Tapan also said in the beginning. I'm not saying it is wrong, but it is not also entirely true according to my reading. I'm not saying, remember, I'm not saying that what Tapan said is wrong, because Tapan said exactly that what is also shared by many other scholars. But if you read Amartya Sen, I'll share with Dr. Himanshu that reading by Amartya Sen, and he may share with all of you. It is, according to my reading, Amartya Sen does not fit into even only positive freedom. It will be wrong to claim that. Why? That we will discuss now in next 15 to 20 minutes. Then we will have the discussion. Amartya Sen, in an article, Individual Freedom as Social Commitment, he talks about specifically this, the negative freedom and the positive freedom, and he begins that article with basically the Bengal famine, about which also Tapan talked in the beginning while giving the introduction to the lecture. So Amartya Sen gives mainly two, or he begins with two personal experiences. As he I think he was born in Dhaka. That was the partition was not then. I think he was born in 1933 or 34. So this Bengal famine of 1943 was a very very it is something which was, or which which is with Amartya Sen for the entire intellectual life, and the approach that he has developed, the capability approach, or development as freedom approach, or individual freedom as social commitment approach. These three are same: capability approach, or development as freedom approach, or you can say individual freedom as social commitment approach. Okay, this approach rests on Amartya Sen's childhood experience of Bengal famine. Amartya Sen did not experience this because he had enough to eat. In that famine, it is not that everybody was having difficulty in finding food. No. It was only a group of people who were not having food, who were starving. And interestingly, it was restricted to certain professions. It was not with the well-to-do families or well-to-do professions. No, it was specific to certain professions. And Amartya Sen says, in almost all famines of the world, you may find this pattern. Whether it is whether it is a famine where you have shortage of food or unavailability of food, or it is a famine where there is no dearth of food, but the purchasing power is not there with a group of people. That is also famine. No, what is famine? When a substantial number of people of a specific region do not find food to eat, they starve. That is famine. Okay, so famine may happen when you have unavailability of food. It may also happen when you have availability of food, but not for all. That means when you do not have the purchasing power to even buy food, because the wage is not that high, but the food prices are very high. So that is also for a substantial number of people, that is also famine. So Amartya Sen starts with that incident, and there is also one more incident. So when this incident also is also from his childhood, when he was almost maybe some 8 or 9 years old, around the same time. in the early 40s. There was this communal riots or the communal conflicts or the communal violence between different between different religious groups, mainly between Hindus and Muslims in I mean throughout India, also in of course in Bengal. What happened is that one day somebody whose name was Kadir Mia came to Amartya Sen's house, and he was wounded. He was wounded severely because he was a Muslim and he came to a Hindu majority area and he was beaten up badly by Hindus. And of course, Amartya Sen's father took that person, whose name was Kadir Mian, to hospital, and he could not survive the injury and he died there. What is the significance of this story for positive freedom? That person was a very poor man. He came to, I think, sell some firewood. Maybe I do not exactly remember, but maybe he came to sell some firewood, thinking of having some money, earning some money. So Amartya Sen says, if you take into account this example of Kadir Mia, what is this? Because his wife warned him and requested him not to go out because there is a risk of losing your life if you are a Muslim and getting into the Hindu area in a communal riot time, and also otherwise if you are a Hindu and you are getting into the Muslim area in a communal during a communal riot, there is a risk that you are running. So his wife actually requested him not to go, but he said, no, let me try my luck. Anyway, we don't have anything, any money, so we also need to have food. So he said, let me just sell this firewood. So he came and she was beaten up and he died in the hospital after some days. Amartya Sen says, think of this incident. Is it positive liberty? Is it infringement in positive liberty, or is it infringement in negative liberty? What is it? He says, at the very first glance at this incident, you may feel that this was the infringement of his positive liberty. As a human being, he could go anywhere, but he was beaten up by other people, people from other religion. So it was an infringement of negative liberty. So this is what comes to our mind when we look at this story. But Amartya Sen says that we have to go beyond this logic. He says that if I think of, restricting myself to my house and not going out because of the fear of losing my life, that is also infringement of my negative liberty. But again, that is not the end of the story. If you go beyond, you find that why he chose to risk his life, because he was poor. So poverty is a condition of unfreedom, or it's a condition opposite to freedom. So that is why it is linked to positive freedom. So this incident is not only an incident where you apply the negative liberty, it is a, you have to apply both the concept to understand this, story. Amartya Sen, also takes the example of the, the Bengal famine of 1943. He says that why you had famines before independence in India and why you did not have famines in in the independent India. Then he gives data to substantiate his claim that there could have been instances of famine in even in independent India. Why it was why it did not happen? Because there was a democratic government, there was a democratic society, and also there was a free press, there was a plural society. That is why you did not have any famine. And he says very conclusively that if you get into the history of analyzing famines throughout human history, you find that famines have occurred where you do not have democratic society, you do not have a free press, you do not have a plural society. So having a true democracy will prevent the possibility of a famine, because there will be managing the available food grains among your citizens, irrespective of whether they are poor or they are rich. If somebody is poor, it is not necessarily his fault. Sometimes there are systemic reasons. For example, let us understand this negative liberty and positive liberty from Amartya Sen points of view by taking a very relevant example. Many of you may be aspiring to get into civil services after your master degree, if you are students of master degree, because some of you are also MPhil PhD. So some of you may be thinking about getting into civil services. To appear in the civil services nowadays, people say, or the candidates say that it is necessary to go to a coaching where the fee is very high. Whether it is general studies, whether it is optional, the fee is very high. The civil service minimum eligibility criteria, when the advertisement comes, does not prevent anybody on the basis of anything other than educational qualifications from sitting in the examination. That means nobody is debarred from appearing in the examination. If you are a graduate, you can appear. Then somebody may say that who is stopping people from appearing in the examination and and getting through the examination and finally becoming a civil servant. This is so simple. Nobody has stopped you. So this is the argument from negative liberty, that nobody has stopped you from becoming a civil servant. But a argument from positive liberty point of view will say that although procedurally nobody is prevented from appearing in the examination, does all the graduates have the educational background or the family background to aspire for civil services? And the second step, even if you aspire for civil services and you have the talent, do you have the money to go to New Delhi or maybe Hyderabad or Chandigarh or Chennai, where these coachings are offered, or even the capital of your state, for example Bhubaneswar, where there are coaching centers? Does everybody have the money to take admission in the coaching centers and pay lakhs of rupees and then prepare for the civil services? No, most of the students do not have that. So this is positive liberty argument, and this is positive liberty argument from the perspective of Amartya Sen. This is capability approach, that it is not sufficient to provide a very neutral or very free and fair procedure, but you have to make it very substantial, not from a very formal point of view. Means it is not the end of the story that you just say that everybody, I mean, any graduate can apply. No, you also have to take into account the reservation, that students or the candidates from different disadvantaged background, maybe, they may be given reservation. Why? Because the starting point is not equal. There are historical, injustices, and you can extend the argument to different, applications. For example, like, it is not only, I mean, it is, see, the job of the government is not just to provide the security, okay, to its citizens, but you have to also take up welfare measures. Because how will I exercise my freedom if I am hungry? How will I exercise my freedom if, if I am extremely poor? You see, you are giving me the opportunity to cast my vote, and my vote value is equal as the, vote of anybody, maybe the richest man in this country. But in reality, is it the case? Everybody will say no, it is not the case, because money and muscle power, you know are used. Now the Gram Panchayat election is it is there in Odisha. And I visited Odisha last month. No, actually this month, not last month. And I came to know, although I have not verified it and there is no method to verify, I came to know that, nowadays you need to spend at least 15 to 20 lakhs. Imagine, for a panchayat election, if you want to become sarpanch, and if you want to contest, you need to spend not less than 15 lakhs. And you see, it may vary from panchayat to panchayat, and I have not done any research on this. But then I ask some of my friends, and yesterday I was having the discussion, who are from Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. They said the same thing. That yes, it is true that if, nowadays for panchayat election, 15 to 20 lakhs, and even sometimes depending on which panchayat, you belong to, sometimes the amount may go higher, maybe up to 25 lakhs, maybe up to 30 lakhs. So I was, really surprised. I never, although I am a student of political science, I am more inclined towards political theory. So I do not study that much, the electoral politics. So I never thought that you need such a huge amount to contest the panchayat election. And why I'm saying this, when I'm discussing negative and positive liberty, see, my democracy gives me the right to vote. That is my political right. But then, if I am selling my vote, I'm sorry for using this phrase. Yes, people are selling their votes because, you have the chicken feast, you have the mutton feast, you have the liquor, distribution. Then, to add to it, you per family you are giving money, per vote you are giving money. What is this then? Why people are selling their votes? Because of extreme poverty. Sometimes, I'm not saying always, and sometimes people have now internalized the corruption, and they do not think that this is something bad, and they know that because the elected sarpanch will do corruption, and he will amass a lot of money, so let's have some money from the person. So if this is the approach, to freedom, Amartya will definitely say this is not freedom. I mean, this is freedom from a procedural view, but from a real point of view, from a substantial point of view, I am not free. Because if I am free, why I will sell my vote only for 500 rupees, or only for some pieces of mutton or chicken, or a glass of wine? This is not freedom. So freedom has to be understood, in relation to what Amartya Sen calls capability approach, and there is also the other scholar Martha Nussbaum, and Martha Nussbaum uses the word functioning, and Amartya Sen uses the word doings. Okay, give me a second. Yeah. So the freedom to lead different types of lives is reflected, I am quoting from Amartya Sen, by the various alternative combinations of functionings from which a person can choose. This can be called the person's capability. So Amartya Sen also uses the word functioning. A person's capability depends on a variety of factors, including personal characteristics as well as social arrangements. So my capability, my ability to do different things does not only depend on my ability. It is also, it is also dependent on social arrangements. Okay, so if I am sending my children to a school where I am paying annual fee of 1 lakh for the education, and my neighborhood children are going to the government school where they do not need to pay such a huge amount, maybe some 100 per year. They need to give the school fee, and sometimes it is also free, and in many states it is free. In government school it is free, entirely free, up to maybe 10th standard. So how do you then say that this is freedom? Because will these two kinds of children compete with each other? No, the answer is clearly no. Yes, there may be exceptions where people from disadvantaged background also becomes really successful in lives, but this is not always the case. So what happens is that in the capability approach, which is also a a critique of John Rawls's approach. Interestingly, John Rawls criticizes the utilitarian approach. Amartya Sen also criticizes the utilitarian approach, but Amartya Sen also criticizes John Rawls. Okay, so if you read Amartya Sen, you will find a critique of utilitarianism. You will find a critique of John Rawls. So when you read the capability approach talks about real cases. It does not stop making arrangements, making formal arrangements like writing the constitution. It tries to ensure that the state has a larger role beyond merely providing security to its citizens. You have to go beyond that. You have to ensure, particularly in developing societies, that people need to take care. You have to create conditions for freedom. So just merely giving freedom will not work, because to exercise your freedom you need to have some background economic and social conditions. So I stop here. I think I have made myself sufficiently clear what is negative freedom and what is positive freedom, and I now stop here with the expectations that I'll definitely get questions where I will make clarifications. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Dr. Dhal. I mean, when topics becomes theoretical, then questions becomes very less. You did a excellent presentation. I'll go back to Swarnomai Madam just 2 minutes later. I was also teaching the same things in the class today. If my PG first semester students are there and they can match that what are the similarities, what I said and what today you also said it in your talk. Let me give you an example. Today I gave that example in the class. Okay, the Sarpanch is giving 500 or 1000 or 1000 rupees to the voter. He is going to the voter and he is hugging the voters. He is politely giving the money, and as if the voter is feeling that if the sarpanch, I mean if the candidate will be sarpanch, then he will continues to get or 500 or helps like 500, right? But then in the next moment that person has become as the sarpanch, and the voters who gave his or who sold his vote, he has repetitively gone to that sarpanch with his demands, but the sarpanch did not give attention to that person. Then at the end, the voters has become very angry, and he suddenly put his cycle in front of the sarpanch, and he asked that when you were coming to me before the election, you were very polite, and right now you are not giving attention to me. Then very politely the sarpanch replied, he replied like this, that this cycle belongs to you. If I borrow this cycle and if I break it into pieces, then will you object? Then the that voter replied, yes, I will object. I will demand that give my cycle to me. Then the sarpanch again said, if I purchased this cycle from you and then I break it into pieces, then will you object? Then the voter remained silent. The story ends there. See, once you are selling your vote, then you are losing your right. So I think from your presentation, I got a sense that both are important. Positive freedom are important, negative freedom are important. I think again we need some kind of what I will call it, some kind of level of understanding, some kind of selflessness. Otherwise, if you are selfish, then the system will be selfish. Then on one hand you will find the authoritarian structure, and the other hand you will find the market, and in the both the structure, your liberty is gone. So somewhere we need the opportunity, somewhere the state should develop the human capability instead of giving 5,000 rupees. Let me say it on record that this Kalia Yojana, what was the purpose of Kalia Yojana, and what is the consequence of Kalia Yojana? So that's how the system should strengthen the capability of the individual. And individual should be political, right? I mean, for a democracy, if citizens are not political, then what kind of democracy it is? I mean, citizen has to be political, and citizens should be given the condition where they can play as a political person. But my doubt is that, is it really possible in a representative democracy like us? Today I was teaching Benjamin Barber, and he is saying this representative democracy or representation is anti-liberty, it is anti-equality, it is anti-social justice. So can we think of a state which will provide a positive conditioning where people can become political? Is it really possible? I am very much doubtful. Right. So with these comments, I welcome Professor Swarnomai Tripathi. She is with us. She can give her observation or comment. Please, madam. Madam, are you there? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, madam. You can give your comment.
Am I audible?
You are audible, but you are not visible.
It's very simple. Okay.
Okay. Now you are visible.
Namaskar, madam.
Namaskar. Excellent presentation. I really enjoyed your talk. I have in a very very nice way you have. I'm sure your classes must be very interesting to the students.
Thank you.
That is what I can say, because this is the approach I adopt also in the class. I enjoyed your lecture. It is really brilliant. Mm, but since we are talking about all this, and also Himanshu Babu gave a very nice example. It's a really interesting example. Once you sell your vote means you have lost your right. It is not your right at all. My point is that today at in the given juncture, uh, we, we are discussing about negative liberty and positive liberty. This is my viewpoint, what I understand. At one point of time when men had majority in the society had no freedom and they had no say in the governance process. At that time, we were talking about that. At that point of time, philosophers defined the word freedom means absence from all chains. Today, what I feel in the given juncture, climate change, all human rights issues, the concept of negative liberty has no meaning at all. I don't find any meaning in that concept. What is actually, in the discourse today is positive liberty and nature of positive liberty. Because we cannot think of liberty without the presence of law. If you are thinking of liberty in the presence of law, that is positive liberty. Simply what I understand, law, uh, freedom within the scope of law or freedom sanctioned by law is actually positive liberty. But in a broader sense, we feel that if there is peace, if there is no conflict at all, then that is also positive liberty, because I do not speak out. That means I enjoyed my freedom and I have the right. I enjoyed the right. I enjoyed the freedom because there is peace in the society. But behind peace, there might be some dissatisfaction in the majority that we are not able to speak. We are not given the chance to speak, because if we speak, we might be branded as anti-national. So we do not speak. Okay. So in this context also, there is law. So the point here is that when we are talking about positive liberty, which Amartya Sen is just, since Amartya Sen is a welfare economist, so Amartya Sen is talking about the entitlements of the individuals, development as freedom, the book I have read, entitlements of the individuals. But if you go for a larger thing, in the context of the panchayat election, what Himanshu Babu said, one incident that came out in the newspapers, in the regional newspapers of Odisha, that in a particular panchayat, the sarpanch seat was sold for 44,000 or something of that sort. And it was a collective decision of the people of that panchayat. And now this is the real story. Now when I read this story, I deduce 2 points out of it. Number one, who are the people? The people who call themselves as people have taken away the rights of other people. It is not an individual bargain. Okay? Number one. And what in this context, how do we interpret liberty? Second thing is that you know the people also remain silent in such a situation. They are not claiming their rights. It is positive liberty. So point is that who are the people? What is the content of the law? These two things are important to understand positive liberty. I don't accept the negative liberty concept anymore, because what exists is positive liberty, because we enjoy liberty in the presence of law. So I do not accept any concepts like negative liberty. This is my understanding. So if you can just it is not a question to you, but I just want to because you have read a lot on this. How do we interpret this? The collective conscience which takes away the rights of the individual, and
Yes.
the collective action which also takes away the rights of the individual.
So
Okay,
thank you,
so
madam.
that is the thing.
Thank you, madam. I think let me say something before Dr. Dhala respond to these two observations or comments. And I was told by Sanjay in some panchayat of Sundargarh district, all these candidates, they they faced an examination, right? So those who are qualifying in that examination, so they can contest in the election. So I think that there are also some good practices along with the bad practices. I think we have to develop all these good practices. The academia must focus, and I am also thinking of doing a small research on that, so that it can come to our front. Now, Dr. Dhal, you can respond to these two comments before.
Yes.
Then I will go to the questions asked by the students.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, thank you, Swarnamay ma'am, for the kind words. And yes, you are right. When you say that, um, you know, when you say that positive liberty is exercised in the presence of law, that is true. So and that is also the understanding of Rousseau, that if you are abiding yourself by the laws that are prepared by general will, that is freedom. And that is also the understanding of positive freedom, that you will abide by the laws made by the general will. So that is the real understanding of positive freedom. But when Amartya Sen uses this word, he's not rejecting this understanding. He's adding to this understanding that you have to create conditions where I will be, or the citizen will be in a position to exercise the freedom. So it is not only, see, if I give you a laptop, okay, and you do not know how to run the laptop, then definitely it will be of no use to the person whom I am giving the laptop, because he doesn't know how to use it. So likewise, if you are giving freedom, if you are giving liberty and rights to the citizens, and you are not creating enabling conditions, they will not be in a position to to actually exercise their rights. So when you say that positive liberty or freedom lies in abiding by the laws, that is true. But laws also exist in in the negative liberty sphere. How? If you do not have a well established system of law, then anybody can do anything. and that is not negative liberty, because then then anybody can interfere with your freedom also. So law is both law is there both in positive freedom and also in negative freedom. I mean, you need to have a well established system of law, then only you will be in a position to enjoy your negative liberty. So it is not only for positive liberty that laws are important, for negative liberty and also laws are important. I do not completely agree with you, ma'am, when you say that nowadays positive liberty, it is only about positive liberty. That is not the case. It is also about negative liberty, and it is not for everybody, but definitely for a for a small number of people. Yes, you are true that maybe negative liberty is not used, not enjoyed by everybody, but definitely for many people, because private property is linked to you know negative liberty. I mean, this is the understanding by the libertarians, that private property is a distinct feature of negative liberty, but that doesn't mean that positive liberty doesn't require property. And there is distinction between private property and personal property. Personal property is required for positive freedom, but private property as an institution, maybe capital. So that is linked to negative freedom. If you do not have property, then you will yes. So the number of capitalists, or the or the level of wealth that the capitalists are have been able to amass, it is because of the negative liberty, it is because of the economic freedom. And yes, negative liberty is definitely linked with economic freedom. That's why it is linked to libertarianism. So many industrialists, many capitalists are making money like anything. I mean, see the level of wealth that a group of capitalists have been able to amass during the corona period, where many poor people lost their livelihood. So definitely we cannot say that negative liberty is not there, but you are right that that positive liberty, maybe you can say that because of the populist measures, because of the welfare measures that the state is taking, you can say that that positive liberty is more emphasized by the state. Like Himanshu also took the example of Kaliya Yojana and many other populist measures of the Odisha government, and also of other governments, like in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, you have the you have the schemes. So now coming back to the other comment that Himanshu said, like if you are selling your vote, you cannot say anything after that, because you have sold your vote. That is true if vote is a thing, but vote is a right, and you cannot be in a position in a democracy. You should not be in a position where you are selling your most crucial right, that is the political right to give vote. Why? Because even, I mean, see, you cannot sell this. This is so integral to your political self, and that is why. And this is also emphasized by Amartya Sen, that he says that I mean, why this situation is created when people are selling their votes. Because see, you do not find this phenomena in the in the Western world, in the developed world. Why? Because they are literate. They are they are not their level of poverty is not like our level of poverty. Poverty is also there in United States of America, but it is not like the way that we define poverty. So their poverty is different. So if there is acute level of poverty, if there is acute level of illiteracy, then only these conditions are created when people are selling their votes. If I know that's a very inappropriate phrase, but yes, people are doing that. So that will not be there if there will be literacy and there will be, a relative equal, distribution of wealth. I'm not saying, complete equality or, absolute equality, but there has, you should not be in a state where, the Gini coefficient is so high. You have a number of people who are filthy rich, and you have people who are not able to, eat. So that has to be, that gap has to be bridged, and who will do that? It is the government who will do that. So yes, I will also, say something here, which Sonami ma'am also said. It is regarding peace. See, peace is not, definitely peace is not the absence of violence. Peace is more than that. And interestingly, Amartya Sen talks about this, in his writings. He says, and he gives this example of illiteracy and gender inequality. He says that if the women in the rural areas are happy with, what they are doing, it is not real happiness, because they do not know what is gender equality. So, and if a illiterate person is happy that he is, I mean, he is happy with what he is doing, then it is not real happiness, because he was not given an opportunity to study. And the women in the rural households or in the rural areas were not given, an atmosphere of gender equality. So so their peace or their silence, it's not actually peace. It is, it is the absence of the enabling conditions. If you give the enabling conditions, definitely there will be, I mean, they will raise their voice. And do not call that violence, do not call that absence of peace, because you have to define peace, in a different manner. The absence of protest is not peace, that is something else. So, in the graveyard also, you do not, you have complete silence, but is it peace? No, that is not peace. Thank you.
So thank you. I mean, you gave a very befitting reply. What money cannot buy many things, including the political rights. I mean, who decided that the buying and selling of a vote is only 500 or 1000 rupees? It's because people are in a helpless situation, and politicians are exploiting that helpless situation by branding it like that I purchased it. But whether the seller is ready to accept that she has sold it or he has sold it, I mean, it's a befitting reply. And that's why, I always, recognize you that you are a good speaker, because your mind is working. So I think
Thank you.
then,
Let me tell one thing. Actually, my question was to provoke you to give this answer, because because even when we were talking, the philosophers were talking about, you were uh, perfectly right when you say that even in negative liberty there is law. Because when philosophers were talking about negative liberty, that time also they were saying that law is required to maintain law and order.
Yes.
So you are perfectly right. And the final thing that in the conclusion we can say, unless and until we have an egalitarian society,
True.
positive liberty has no meaning at all.
True. True.
Because you are standing in a line for 500 rupees to get the মানে जो बार्धक्य भत्ता,
Yes.
and
Yes. Yes.
during election, if with easy money you are getting 500, so but since you have morality, you have commitment, you do not understand the meaning of secret ballot. ମାନେ 500 ଟଙ୍କା ନେଇକି ବି ତୁମେ ଆଉ କାହାକୁ ଭୋଟ ଦେଇ ପାରନ୍ତ, but
Right.
ଯେହେତୁ ତୁମକୁ 500 ଟଙ୍କା ପାଇବାକୁ ଏତେ କଷ୍ଟ ହଉଛି, 500 ଟଙ୍କା ନେଇକିରି ତୁମେ ତାକୁ ହିଁ ଭୋଟ ଦଉଛ, because you
True.
feel obliged ଯେ ଏତେ ସହଜରେ ସେ ତୁମକୁ 500 ଟଙ୍କା ଦେଇଦେଲା.
True. True.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
So thank you. I mean, as long as we are having selfishness, I mean, the politician gets the appropriate atmosphere, and we will continues to debate, and the problem will continues with us. I mean, there is no solution. The only solution, I think, in my personal, reading or realization, that the moment you grow beyond yourself, if you are not going, then the problem will continue. No policy, no intellectualization will help you. We are all limited, and we are all operating with our limited sphere. We all are limited actually. In a sense, we all are marginalized in different forms. Now I am coming back to questions asked by my students. Sanjay is asking the question, what is Skinner views on liberty and why he is critical on Berlin's notion of negative liberty. Smruti Bhaiya, you can write down or you can remember the questions,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
at a time you will answer.
Yes,
And
yes.
the second question he is asking, what is Isa Berlin's views on value pluralism? Then Brundavan is asking, how can one accommodate his liberty with social or collective benefits when one does not have the capacity to fully enjoy his liberty? Is there any way out? Then Sanjay is asking, Sanjay Sunai, another student, how do you see liberty without equality and fraternity? Then Tapan is asking, okay, I think Tapan is not asking. Okay, Brundavan again asking another question. Is it true to say the so-called capitalists have always been enjoying their negative liberty, while majority poor have only the positive liberty to enjoy? So this much questions students have asked.
Yeah.
Okay, then Lingaraj has asked why Berlin does not give the importance on positive liberty, but positive liberty is good for our society. Okay, this much questions. Some of the answer you have already given in your talk, but if you wish, you can.
Yeah. So the first question is, what is Skinner's views on liberty and why he is critical on Berlin's notion of negative liberty? See, Skinner is a civic Republican thinker, or broadly the Republican tradition. You can locate Skinner in that tradition. So before Skinner, you did not have any interpretation of Machiavelli, and Machiavelli was only interpreted, um, uh, as the person who wrote Prince, and the other Machiavelli that you find in the discourses was not emphasized. It was Skinner who started, emphasizing that aspect of Machiavelli, and he, interpreted Machiavelli from a Republican point of view. And he said that when Machiavelli is saying that, anything can be justified if that is, if that is used to preserve the state or to maintain the state, that is fine. No ethics or morality is there when it comes to politics. So that was the view, um, uh, regarding Machiavelli before Skinner's interpretation. Skinner said that there is a interconnection between Prince and, discourses when it comes to Machiavelli, and it is not that you should not read them in isolation from each other. These are written by the same person, and definitely there is a link. So he says that you enjoy this, you enjoy your your political liberty, or you enjoy your liberty within a state only when you participate in that liberty. If you do not participate in the common affairs of the of the polity, then your polity is each you will lose your liberty. So it is the Republican view of liberty, which rests on Aristotle's understanding of politics, and the modern Republicans are definitely, Skinner and Philip Pettit, Quentin Skinner, and of course you have Hannah Arendt in the same tradition before Skinner and Pettit, and before that definitely Machiavelli is interpreted by Skinner in the same tradition. So this liberty is the liberty of the Republicans. Okay, so by following Benjamin's statement, you may say that this is the liberty of the ancient. That to enjoy your liberty, to enjoy your negative liberty, you need, or to enjoy your liberty, to enjoy your freedom, you need to contribute to the common affairs. You need to participate in politics. Otherwise, you will not be in a position to enjoy your liberty. So this is Quentin Skinner's view on liberty, and this is Republican view of liberty. And that is why he was critical of negative liberty. That by only emphasizing on the absence of external impediments, if you try to understand liberty, then that is an incomplete understanding of liberty, because you do not enjoy your liberty. You do not get to enjoy your liberty if you are not contributing to create a participatory polity. I mean, if you are not participating, because Republican model of politics emphasizes on political participation. So that is the essence of Skinner's views on liberty. And when it comes to Berlin's views on value pluralism, it's not directly connected to liberty, but yes, in a society where you are not where the differences are not respected, so where values, where you do not have a single central value overpowering all other values. If you are having that kind of a society where one value is central and dominating others, then it is not a plural society. It is not a value plural society. So you have to, and this is also, if you see, if you are a negative liberal, if you are a liberal, to start with, if you are a liberal, then you have to give emphasis to plurality. That's why in Locke also you find Locke's essay on toleration. So it is, so value pluralism argues in favor of a society where you do not give emphasis, or you do not give centrality to a specific value overpowering over all other values. So it's a kind of, and you need this setup if you want to enjoy negative liberty, because if you are persecuting the other values, if you value the majority value, or a specific value, if you are giving centrality and emphasis or focus to that value, then then negative liberty will be threatened. Negative liberty will survive only when there is equality, there is toleration, there is respect for other cultures, and value pluralism is a indispensable element for a democratic society, or for a real democracy where you want to enjoy your negative liberty. Next question is, how can one accommodate his liberty with social or collective benefit when one doesn't have the capacity to full enjoy his liberty? Is there any way out? If I'm getting the question correctly, see, maybe you are asking about the tussle between negative liberty and positive liberty. There is a way out. And what is the way out? The way out is given by Skinner himself, Amartya Sen himself, and this is the capability approach. Interesting. I'll read out exactly what are the words written by Amartya Sen, just 3-4 sentences. Amartya Sen writes, I quote, while there is a real distinction between the positive and the negative aspects of freedom, the different aspects can be thoroughly interrelated and intertwined. To concentrate only on one or the other is not only normatively incomplete, but can also be socially disjointed. The social commitment to individual freedom has to be concerned with both positive and negative freedoms and with their extensive interconnections. So he emphasized on the interconnection. So that's why I said in the beginning, when I started talking about Amartya Sen, that it's a misconception that Amartya Sen is located in the positive liberty. No, actually, Amartya Sen talks about both the freedoms, and he says that both the freedoms are complementary to each other. You cannot do away with the idea of negative freedom. That is so crucial for the idea of liberty. So liberty is a broader concept which should have both negative and positive freedom, and there is a difference than Isaiah Berlin. What is the difference? Berlin says that negative and positive liberty are not merely different aspects of liberty. They are antithetical to each other. They are opposite to each other. And this is not a view which is accepted by Amartya Sen. Amartya Sen is that, both the liberties can coexist, and they must coexist. So it will be meaningless to have one without the other. I'll take the question by Sanjay Suna. Do we Indian really practice true liberty? If yes, how? How do you see liberty without equality and fraternity? Yes. So the first question, I don't have a conclusive answer. As I said, we are a democratic society. We are a liberal democracy. There is no doubt about that. But it is not, it is not perfect. There are problems in our democracy. So we do not practice true liberty to the maximum extent. But yes, we practice liberty. You have liberty in India. But yes, there are different instances where people are subdued, and people's liberty has been infringed. But we cannot claim that we do not enjoy liberty. We enjoy liberty. It is like, see, you cannot buy my vote. So for me, I will say that I enjoy true liberty. So but this cannot be shared by somebody else. Okay. So so there cannot be any conclusive one answer to your question. But yes, for me, there are many people who enjoy liberty in India, but there are also a group of people, because of their poverty and social disadvantage, they do not enjoy true liberty. That is true. Yes, everybody enjoys political liberty, but to what extent is it is meaningful? That is a question. Your second question is how do we see liberty without equality and fraternity? Without I think you are taking the phrase from French Revolution, and it was also reflected in Ambedkar's writings. So true, liberty without equality and fraternity are meaningless. I emphatically say this, that liberty without equality and fraternity are meaningless. That's why Ambedkar talked about the life of contradictions that we are going to enter with our independence. Vrindavan Nahak, is it true to say the so-called capitalists have always been enjoying their negative liberty while the majority poor have only positive liberty to enjoy? No, I didn't mean to say that. I said that your first part is correct. I said that the capitalists, because they are becoming richer, and the poor people are becoming poorer. So that way the poor people are not even enjoying their negative liberty, because there are also many external impediments which is impinging, or which is interfering with their negative liberty. But yes, if you take into account some form of populist schemes, and some form of welfare measures, there is a difference between welfareism and populism. Sometimes they also tend to overlap. I took the example of Odisha, I took the example of Kerala, I took the example of Tamil Nadu, where you have populism and also welfareism. So if there is welfare economics, if there are welfare measures in a state, definitely there is positive liberty which is practiced. So taking into account that, I said that some people are enjoying the uh, positive liberty. I mean, not absolutely, but yes, relative level of positive liberty. In these states. See, there was a time when people were selling their kids in Odisha, in my district itself, Jaspur. But nowadays, nobody is starving because of many welfare measures, because of many schemes that the government of Odisha has rolled out in the recent years, or maybe last 10 to 15 years. Nobody is starving now. Nobody is without food. So that way, people do not have the condition where but in spite of these populist measures, there is not a meaningful level of positive liberty, I would say. Tapan Sahu, there is not a question. Thank you for your kind words, Tapan. Lingaraj, why Berlin doesn't give the importance on positive liberty, but positive liberty good for our society? Lingaraj, it's a good question, but
No, I think Sanjay has already replied to this question.
yes. So I have already discussed also that positive liberty, because negative liberty. I mean, positive liberty is criticized by Berlin because it has a inherent tendency to lead towards authoritarianism. That is the reason why Berlin criticizes the positive liberty. Sanjay Meher,
No, I
very,
think I think all the questions has been answered.
yeah,
There is
yes,
no
yes.
question actually.
Yes,
Uh,
and one more. Yeah, yes. I think I've already answered that question. Yes.
okay. So thank you, Dr. Dhala. You have answered almost all the questions. Now, since you have been speaking, for last 2 hours, we do not want to give you pen. Right now, I'll go back to my student Sahil. He is in the PG first semester. He will provide you the vote of thanks. And okay, let him do that, then I will come back. Okay, Sahil, please.
Thank you, sir.
You have to, Sahil.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now there is no, and some sound is coming. So we want to see you and we want to listen you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening to one and all present here. Respected keynote speaker, Dr. Smruti Ranjan Dhal, sir. Thanks to the convener of the webinar, Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra, sir. Respected ma'am, and Dr. Professor Sonnamai Tripathi, ma'am. It's really a great pleasure for me to propose a vote of thanks. First of all, I would like to give my heartily thanks and sincere gratitude to Dr. Smutiranjan Dhal sir for making an excellent presentation on the topic negative liberty versus positive liberty, reading Yavalin and Amartya Sen. At the beginning, sir talk that negative liberty is freedom from and positive liberty is freedom too. Really, sir, it is absolutely correct. Then, sir talked about in positive liberty, you have to be radical. Then again, he sir talked about higher self and lower self. Then, sir simply clarified or explain the concept of negative liberty and positive liberty through an example of a computer. Really, sir, it was really outstanding presentation. We are really grateful to you, sir, for providing your most valuable time. And I would like to thanks Dr. Himanshu Sekhar Mishra, sir, for organizing such seminar for us. And again, I would like to thanks Dr. Professor Sonamai Tripathi, ma'am, for joining the webinar. And then I would like to thanks Tapan Sahu my senior in MPhil, Political Science Department, for presenting the introduction on the topic. Then I am happily express a vote of thanks to the all participants for making this webinar great. Thank you. Have a great day, sir.
Thank you, Sahil.
So thank you, Sahil. I think there is some technical problem with the Sahil. Okay, it was actually smoothly conducted and done, but somehow, if there is any technical problem, then, again, I feel, personally very disturbed. So on behalf of all, Smruti bhai, I'm happy that you agreed, and after the 3 months, your turn, returned. And mostly the participants were actually students, and when students, they hugely present, it means that they are present because there is a teacher. So there is a teacher, no doubt. You simplified the theory, but this simplicity is also not good for political theory or political philosophy student. They need to read. Then only they will not feel that that you gave a talk rather than you are just having a chat with them. So if you read the text, then you can find. And it is also including me. I should also read, since I'm little experienced. Then my students, I manage. But managing and reading are two different things. So thank you. So before I stop this recording, let me say that some of the students, they may chat with you in Odia, but we will do that. So be with us. They will do that maybe, when the recording will be stopped.
Okay.
So let me stop the recording.
Okay.